is the Orange Zone, sponsored by Apex Entertainment.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Orange Zone podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we are here to talk about Syracuse men's lacrosse and Cornell men's lacrosse. They are both headed to the Final Four. It is a great time to be a lacrosse fan in Central New York. Ashley was actually at both of the games. The Syracuse one especially was an instant classic, so that's where we're going to begin. This was a game that featured 11 ties and 9 lead changes. But ultimately, Syracuse defeated number 3 seed Princeton 19-18, advancing to the final weekend for the 27th time and first time since 2013. That's a decade. How are we feeling?
Yeah, to say it was an upset would be an understatement. Second game of the day out on Long Island, Hofstra University. Great hosts for this quarterfinals round. Really just had a fantastic time, aside from the gnats that bit me all over my arm. You can go back and listen to my instant reaction video where I actually choked on a gnat in the middle of it. So that's just fun. We'll have to pull that up later. I haven't even shown you yet. No, it's crazy.
I didn't even know that.
Anyways, delightful time. And had even more of a delightful time because we came away with 2 wins from the 2 Central New York teams that we went to cover. Syracuse beats Princeton. To say it was an upset would be an understatement. Princeton, really second-ranked team in the country through much of the second half of the regular season. You were holding your breath the whole game. I mean, like you just said it, the lead changes, we were going back and forth. It really felt like whoever had the ball last was going to win this game, whoever had the last opportunity to score. That's sort of what happened. Princeton did get it back for like 6 seconds, but couldn't do anything with it right at the end. To say that this was a monumental win for Gary Gait and Syracuse men's lacrosse and Joey SPALLINA and everyone's sort of, I guess, tenures, everyone's time at Syracuse would be an understatement. They fought until the very end to win that game. Princeton, a very good team. 2 really high caliber offenses. Like the defenses really didn't show up to play. It was offense against offense, and Syracuse came out on top.
Oh, it was offense against offense, and it was such a fun game to watch. It is not even funny. 9 different players scored for Syracuse in this game, and it was something crazy. Like the first 8 or 10 goals were scored by all different players across both teams.
11. The first 11 goals in the game across both teams.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, Joey SPALLINA was really the guy leading the offense with 8 points on 4 goals and 4 assists. And let me tell you what, he had a little something to say to the haters, too, in his post-game press conference, which I thought, or actually it was the on-field interview.
Yeah.
But I still thought that was awesome. He silenced a lot of people. There were that group of haters who would continue to say and pump out the narrative that he wouldn't show up in big games. This was the biggest of big, and he showed up. That's all there is to say.
That's literally what I said in my sportscast last night. Like, this was the biggest game of his career to date, like the biggest stage, the biggest national audience, and he met the moment. He came through and had one of the best games of his career. Joey, I mean, usually a pretty quiet kid. Like, to see him have that moment and to even have the little post game, I forget exactly what he said, but he threw in a little sarcasm at the end where he was like, yeah, it was great, and and I can't block, and I can't whatever he said. So, and I can't come through in the big moments, and he did. So to see him have a great game on Long Island, he's from Mount Sinai,
yes.
right around where you're from. So to see him have that moment, I think was really fantastic. SPALLINA, by the way, on the cusp of history. Everybody has been quite critical of him throughout his Syracuse tenure. Hasn't won a Tewaaraton or anything like that. To say that that's the stakes is crazy, but it almost is for a guy like him. And he is on the cusp of history. He's at 89 points on the year, and there's only 3 Syracuse players that have ever had 90 points in a season, and the last one was Mikey Powell in 2004. Obviously, I'd be shocked if he didn't get at least 1 point in the semifinals game. So to see SPALLINA hit that mark and really etch his name in the Syracuse lacrosse history is going to be fantastic.
And you know what? I have to say something else about Joey SPALLINA that I witnessed through watching him play. I was watching on TV this weekend. I am happy for him that he got those 4 goals, but he is such a beautiful assister.
Yeah.
It is not even funny. I mean, he puts this ball on a line. And his body, I actually think he really uses to his advantage because he sort of has that like bulldog feel, if that makes sense, where I feel like he's really using his body.
He's kind of small.
He's small, but he's like burly. He's strong,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so he's using his body and his shoulder to make the defender play him. And then because the defender's playing him, Owen Hiltz or whoever else will get open, and he just has this beautiful pass. Owen Hiltz is just able to catch it right in his stick, and it's a catch and shoot situation. And you see the result of that because this is what else sticks out to me. It's not just Joey SPALLINA. Owen Hiltz, Michael Leo, Sam English, Finn Thompson, Peyton Anderson, all had multi-goal days.
Yeah.
This offense is ridiculous. And let's be fair, there were times throughout this year and this season where you really didn't know whether or not they were going to end up being a Final Four team. I have to be really honest and say I'm actually surprised to see that they are, just based on the inconsistency that we've seen throughout the year. But now, and you see them put up, almost 20 goals against Princeton.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like the sky is the limit, and it makes me feel like, you know what? They could win a national championship. Why not them?
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
When that offense is right, which it obviously was in the Princeton game, right? You felt like going into the Princeton game that Syracuse was going to have its best day to beat Princeton. Now, did they have their most complete game of the season? No. The defense didn't really, show up to play, but you're facing the Princeton offense, one of the best, probably a top 3 offense in the country. So the offense did have one of its best days. Absolutely. You said it. I think Hiltz and Leo were the other 2 with hat tricks. That offense can run with absolutely anyone in the country, maybe up for the best offense in the country when everybody's rolling. And they were on Saturday to beat Princeton. But like you said, I mean, this has just been such a journey for this team this season. Like, Gary Gait had a really, really interesting quote that I used in the shows yesterday, post-game. And he said, I think it was Brent Axe from Syracuse.com, asked him about basically how he got the team back, right? Because they lose 3 games to end the regular season, starting with the Cornell loss. I believe Duke was in there. They lose 3 games to end the regular season, and everybody's kind of like, is this team even going to make the NCAA tournament, right? Is this even a tournament team? I don't know, because they had a really great start to the season, but then the wheels fell off. And Gary Gait said, in response to that, he was like, you know what? Yeah, I think we did it was refreshing. Like, honestly, the candor that Gait had. He said, I think we did get a little caught up at the beginning of the year. If you recall, everybody was kind of ranking them 2, 3 in the country, preseason, first few weeks of the year. This is one of the best teams in the country. And he said, I think we did get a little caught up in that. So when we hit that losing streak, when we hit that kind of, slow spurt to end the year, I kind of had to reel him back in a little bit and say, let's just take it one game at a time, one day at a time. As cliche as that sounds, you can sit here and think about the first national championship since 2009 and the whole 9 yards, or you can take it one game at a time. And he even said, he was like, our next one game at a time happens to be the semifinals, but it's just one game at a time.
Honestly, he was even pumping out the same thing a week or so ago when I was talking to him. And I did think it was interesting because you definitely have coaches who feel differently about that. Some of them want to hype up the big time moments. I think that Gary Gait recognized the fact that, Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken, was ranked 2 preseason.
I believe so.
Behind reigning national champions Notre Dame, and that's it. And I'm going to be honest, I looked at that and I was like, that's too high. I think that people thought, and I mean, maybe it ultimately will end up not being, but I really did think, wow, that is a little bit of a reach. And I honestly think the team didn't handle that pressure well. I think he knew, hey, we can take off the pressure by just having this sort of strategy. They've used it the entire year, so why stop now?
Yeah.
And to your point, up next, we have 2-seed Maryland. That is who they will be playing against. It's going to be on ESPN2. This game will be played on Saturday at 2:30 in Foxborough, Massachusetts at Gillette Stadium. I am excited for this game.
To say, I mean, you can look at this matchup 2 different ways, and I saw fans online kind of looking at it 2 different ways, right? You can be excited that they got Maryland because it's finally the chance to get revenge for all Maryland has done to them in the last few years. Or, and I did see some people hoping for Georgetown to kind of avoid the Maryland disaster once more. Maryland has beaten them 7 straight times. They have ousted them from, I believe, 2011, a couple of NCAA tournaments in the quarterfinals. They lost at the hands of Maryland. And they beat them earlier this season, 11-7 in College Park. It was not at the Dome. It was away. But to say that this would be the moment to get past Maryland would be an understatement.
I mean, who wasn't hoping for Georgetown?
Right.
But we all at least kind of felt, I think, that probably wasn't going to happen. And now you see here, like you said, it's an opportunity, if you look at it that way, to potentially get some revenge. So we will be rooting for them. We will be covering it, of course, in some capacity. And we will have all those updates here for you. The other thing, wanted to point it out, Cornell also headed to the Final Four. But my God, was that a close game? Richmond, freaking unseeded team, took them down to the wire. Cornell won this game 13-12, but they could have lost it.
Yeah. To say that I was not expecting the Cornell game to be as close as it was, oh my God. Richmond, I believe this is Richmond's first time in the NCAA tournament. Their coach, I think his name is Dan Shamati.
I think it's their first win in an NCAA tournament when they won against UNC.
Yes, he is a West Genesee grad, worth pointing out, as is the Penn State coach. A lot of West Genny ties in this area. So Richmond gave Cornell a run for their money. I mean, I have a sweet spot for Cornell. I feel like just covering them and like getting to know some of them this season. And CJ Kurse is so fantastic. I love Cornell men's lacrosse this year. I think they could win the national championship, genuinely. But to say that they had to grit that game out, oh my God. I thought they were going to lose at multiple points.
And they could have and actually maybe should have. I feel like if you're Richmond, you have a couple things where you're like, damn, especially the ending. That being said, I honestly want to give Richmond a little shout out and some credit to go in there and hang with Cornell and nearly beat them is pretty wild for that program. So honestly pumped to see that for them. But yes, Cornell headed to the Final Four. They will be facing Penn State. That's also going to be a freaking ripper. So prepare for that.
The storylines in this Final Four are fantastic, right? We just said Syracuse, Maryland, one of the best rivalries in the sport. Maryland's had their number for years, almost a decade. Cornell, Penn State. Cornell has one loss this season. Guess who they lost to? Good old Penn State. 16-1. They want one of those games back this year. They only want one back, and they get to have another crack at it.
That is Matt, to be a broadcaster in this Final Four.
Money. You just got two gifted storylines. Here you go.
Wait, and then on top of that, Syracuse wins, Cornell wins, and then they get to face each other,
start there.
and it's an upstate New York battle.
Too much.
Bang! I know, one game at a time, Gary Gait, but I'm just saying it would be good for the plot.
It would be great for the plot.
And good for us. Okay, so yes, those two games happening on Saturday. The national championship game will happen on Monday. So again, we will, of course, be covering those games for you. Otherwise, have a great week, and we will see you back here next week.